Welcome to Culture Talk. This is the segment where we talk about our faith and how it connects to pop culture, but also some common topics of conversation. And one of the topics that we have for today is a tricky one, social justice. So joining me is my colleague and friend, Fazale Rana. Faz, thank you for joining me.
Sandra.
First, before we dive into whether or not social justice is important, we want to talk first about the term, because unfortunately it's been kind of stigmatized and it's attached to certain political views. It's deemed as just being a liberal idea. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, social justice is very much something that everybody seems to be talking about today. And I actually think that that's a good thing because in my view, as a Christian who is deeply committed to the gospel, who thinks that the church's primary function is to share the gospel, I can't see how we can do that effectively if we neglect issues of social justice. So to me, social justice is intertwined with the gospel itself.
And your work as a biochemist, you've mentioned it's actually shed light on the importance of social justice. So explain to us your research in the origin of humanity and how that's led to your thoughts and views on social justice.
Well, I mean, one of the key ideas is that human beings are made in God's image. And I'm doing work to try to show that scientifically there's evidence for what we would call human exceptionalism. And as I realized how powerful that evidence was, that the truth and the reality of the fact that human beings bear God's image was really impressed upon me. And that idea that we bear God's image is so important because according to Scripture, because other people bear God's image, how we treat them is equivalent to how we would treat God himself.
Indeed.
So if we curse another person, that's the same thing as cursing God because that person bears God's image. But if we love and we serve other people, that's the same thing as loving and serving God himself. And so it's an act of worship to engage in combating social injustices in our world. And again, I think it's deeply intertwined with the gospel itself.
Agreed. So now about the science, there are some things that you've just learned in your research that point to human exceptionalism. First, quickly explain what that is, and then explain some of the distinctions between humans and, say, hominids.
Yeah, well, this idea of human exceptionalism is a scientific idea, and that is that human beings differ from all other creatures, including the great apes and the hominins, creatures like Neanderthals and Homo erectus. And this idea is really gaining a strong foothold among anthropologists who would be evolutionary biologists who would not necessarily embrace the Christian faith. And it's a counter to Darwin's idea that human beings only differ in degree, not kind. And so it's exciting that there's mounting evidence for human exceptionalism.
And the exceptionalism would be kind of a display of really God's image with art and such. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. What makes us exceptional, according to anthropologists, is that we have a capacity for symbolism. We have what's called open-ended generative capacity, meaning we can embed one idea in another, creating alternate scenarios and hypotheses. We have what's called theory of mind, where we can recognize minds in other people like ours. And when you put it all together, this is what seems to stand us apart from all other creatures. And to me, those descriptors are scientific descriptors that line up with what we would understand the image of God to be as Christians.
Very good. So then when we think about the importance of studying science and studying just really the anthropology of it all, it isn't just for the elitist, it's for those who want to know how to have conversations with non-believers and say, look, like the science is showing that humans are exceptional. And through that, that's the why. Now the how, which you've explained before in conversations we've had. When we understand the why, then it leads to how. How can we help?
Yes.
So I know that you have been studying a lot about the origins of humanity, and that has led you to ask yourself, how can I help? Right. So how have you helped? Because I know you have.
Yeah, well, when you realize that human beings really are made in God's image and there's a scientific case, for me, it means that I really need to take what Scripture says seriously. I need to be involved in social justice issues, and what's motivating me, again, is the science itself. And so it's not just, again, making a case for the Christian faith. but it's really living out the Christian faith when we realize people bear God's image. And so my wife and I are involved in ministries that help to address homeless issues, but we also are very concerned about child sex trafficking, and had an opportunity with our church to travel to Cambodia and to support the work of a ministry called Agape International Missions that are boots on the ground battling child sex trafficking in Cambodia. But my motivation for doing that was really realizing that when I do that, I'm expressing love for other people, and that's the most powerful apologetic that I know.
Thank you so much for that, Fuz. If you'd like to hear more from Dr. Fazale Rana, please visit reasons.org and keyword search the cell's design. You can also search for his article, New Research Douses Claim That Neanderthals Mastered Fire.